Did you know that Africa was home to cities larger than London and Paris long before Europe emerged as a global power? This is just one of the many revelations in the groundbreaking documentary series Africa's Great Civilizations, hosted by Harvard University professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. premiering on PBS in 2017. This six-part series spans an astonishing 200,000 years of history, beginning with the origin of Homo sapiens in East Africa. The fossil evidence from Homo Kaibish in Ethiopia, dated to around 195,000 years ago, firmly establishes Africa as the cradle of humanity. The documentary then delves into the rise of mighty kingdoms such as the Kingdom of Kush, the Mali Empire, and the Songhai Empire. These civilizations were not only powerful but also centers of innovation, trade, and culture. The Mali Empire, for example, was renowned for its wealth, largely due to its control over the trans-Saharan trade routes. Gold, salt, and ivory flowed from Africa to the Middle East, Europe, and China, enriching these kingdoms and establishing Africa as a key player in global commerce. Timbuktu, a city in the Mali Empire, is a standout example of African ingenuity. In the 15th century, Timbuktu housed over 100,000 inhabitants and was home to the Sanko Madrasa, a university with a library containing 700,000 manuscripts. These manuscripts covered subjects ranging from mathematics to astronomy, challenging the myth of a preliterate Africa. Yet, this rich history was often suppressed by Western historians to justify colonization. Another lesser-known aspect of African history is the role of African elites in the transatlantic slave trade. While it is widely acknowledged that Europeans were the primary drivers of this horrific trade, some African kingdoms, such as the Kingdom of Congo and the Ashanti Empire, actively participated by selling captives. This uncomfortable truth complicates the narrative of pure victimhood and highlights the complex dynamics of the era. The documentary also provides a detailed breakdown of the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, where European powers partitioned Africa without the consent of African leaders. This conference was not just about land, it was a legal mechanism to legitimize the extraction of resources. The arbitrary borders drawn during this conference split 45% of African ethnic groups across multiple nations, a detail often glossed over in favor of general colonization narratives. These borders continue to fuel conflicts today, such as the Nigerian Civil War and the Sudanese conflicts. The transatlantic slave trade had a devastating impact on Africa, with approximately 12.5 million Africans forcibly shipped to the Americas. The documentary notes that the demographic impact was even more severe due to the high mortality rate during the Middle Passage and the disruption of local African economies. By 1850, Africa had an estimated 30 to 50 million fewer people than it would have had without the trade. The series also connects these historical events to modern African and African American identity. The 12.5 million Africans in the diaspora have influenced cultural movements like Afrofuturism and the rejection of colonial names in favor of indigenous ones, such as the renaming of Rhodesia to Zimbabwe in 1980. The economic disparities created by the extraction of resources during the colonial era still affect modern African economies, where nations export raw materials but import finished goods. Africa's Great Civilizations is not just a history lesson, it is a reclamation of the African narrative. By starting the timeline at 200,000 years ago, the documentary establishes Africa as the cradle of humanity, fundamentally shifting the global historical perspective from Eurocentric to Afrocentric. It provides empirical evidence that Africa was a center of innovation long before European contact, challenging the Dark Continent myth. This series is a must-watch for anyone interested in understanding the true depth and complexity of African history and its lasting impact on the world.